Good afternoon. Um, I always seem to come and start my streams with a bit of a sob story. So you may recall earlier this week, because I didn't stream yesterday, as I did warn, yesterday was a bit of a day. In fact, it was a lot of a day. And it's still being a day, but today is the day of where I have said that I will guarantee to stream, so here I am. My heart is somewhat not here yet. However, due to a load of stress yesterday, I'd broken a fingernail earlier in the week, and like all broken fingernails, sometimes you just crack a small chunk off the edge and it's fine. Other times you seem to snap it off at your elbow, and there's blood and there's pain and there's... Well, now my thumb and first finger of my dominant hand are missing nails. Not entirely, but missing, like, the actual useful bit of it. And, well, there was some blood, and I've got sore fingers, so this may not entirely go so well. However, I received a lovely parcel today. Now, you may recall I talked about getting some new bobbin sticks to replace the knitting sticks, and that they would look like this. So here they are. I now have a bunch of them. I'm only going to pull out one of each, but I now have a lovely bunch of... Sorry, this one's not going to show because it's at an angle. There we go. I have a lovely bunch of stick. That's right, they look like they look funny because they're at an angle. So I have some sticks. Now, as you can see, they're quite wide, which gives quite good support to the bobbin, stop them doing the wiggle thing and maybe trying to escape a little. These elastics are firm. They're not as tight as the current sticks, but they are firm. Whereas the ones that I had that were the laces kind of ones, well, the elastic was like, 15-year-old knicker elastic, in that it really didn't do the job anymore. So, we have to try them out, don't we? We have to give them a bit of a go. Now, they will work better with some bobbins than others, just by the sheer nature of the shape of some bobbins is less good with these kind of things. But, as you can see now, that's quite a solid thing. They also have pinholes, so you can pin them down to stop. So if you were travelling, it would stop it sliding around because you could pin them down. So these are exactly what I've been looking for. And although, oddly, they are made by a company who specialise in making laser etched things. They do, obviously, they've got a fancy cutting tool thing, because they make almost like those complex puzzle box looking things. They're not actual puzzle boxes, because I did have a quick look, but they are kind of complex little box things. So they obviously get through a lot of this wood and a lot of cutting and stuff. But this is exactly what I was after, because they are twice the width of the original ones I had. There really is quite a bit of strength in it. Technically, they would hold a couple more. They would hold another pair without too much stress. I think they would easily take another pair of bobbins in that, because there's quite a bit of room here. And obviously, the more bobbins you've got in, effectively the tighter the elastic becomes. So from that point of view, huzzah! So I'm just looking. I've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I've got 9 current sticks in operation, and I have 5 of those. So I need to break into another pack of sticks. That's fine. I will break into another pack of sticks, and I will get them ready for usage. They come with some spare elastic, so that you don't have to try and work out, what size elastic to buy. They come with a couple of spare bits of elastic, which again is very much appreciated. Part of me, and you'll understand this in a second, So, let's take a look at this one, right? Because it's in my hand. Do you put the bobbins on the fancy side or on the plain side? Although this one looks slightly bent, but it doesn't really matter. It is, in fact, it is curved. It's not my imagination. But, for example, you could put the bobbins on the dull side and have a fancy side, but then you'd never see the fancy side. So we will stick with fancy side on the bobbin side because, well, we can. So now we have a big pile of fancy new sticks. I still have some more sticks, by the way. In case you're wondering, I have 15 more sticks in my box. Just to give you a look. Hang on. Give you a bit of a look. There you go. 15 more sticks in my box that I can release from their little hold of box and turn into and block the plastics, the elastics over the end to have ready to use sticks. And as I say, they are a little bit bigger, a little bit bulkier and all the rest of it, but they do stop the kind of floppeting that these do and would probably help with the preventing of trying to escape, and I'm really quite pleased. So that is definitely a thing. So let's see, we need these, so let's take you out of your stick. Obviously, being this and the fact that this is not tapered, which kind of would have been a nice thing, a slightly nice addition would be that this end is tapered to help with the sliding underneath the bobbin. I will be feeding that back to them because it is a minor thing and all it takes is a bit of sandpaper. Just to make that bit end slightly longer so that there's a bit more room to taper it as well would be a good thing. But we are in a position to be doing, as long as my headache, of course, I was about to go and take some headache pills, I had a pee and then forgot. So, because I'm old and stressed and doing stupid things, like, you can't really see it, but I have ripped that thumbnail off, and as I said, I've lost that one, I lost that one, my nails are all falling off, which is, you know, a stress thing, because they're not as healthy as they should be, so they're because you're stressed, and so then they fall off and break, and you just don't need it, you know. So let me see, you are round a pin and shouldn't be. You are likely round a pin and shouldn't be. That's you two, you two, you two, and you two. Scruff you back there. You've got a twist but the wrong way. You're twisted. You're now twisted because we're trying to sort out in advance. And yes, my co-worker did just send me a text message, but we have a lot to talk about at the moment, so lots of things. Such as my new work phone's got a crack in it. Right, I expect I'll hear more on that in a minute. So I need you two. I've got a drink. I don't have headache pills. I really should just keep the headache pills in here, shouldn't I? That would make life so much easier. But hey, since when do you ever do the right things? When is ever life easy? Because if it was easy, we wouldn't need the headache pills now, would we? Right, so we need to do, we've done the cross twist, right. Snug that up, cross twist, because that's how we start all of these off. Let's have a bit of drink. up a little bit for you, because obviously we're working here, so try and have that bit more centre screen and the bobbin's a bit more visible for you. Right. Open the pins. Now this is going to be fun because it hurts to pinch things with my dominant hand at the moment, because my thumb, it was my first finger, now it's my thumb that is incredibly sore, to the point my thumb's trying to have an infection, by the way, so it's been weepy and it's a bit red, and Jesus, I nearly threw all the pins on the floor. God no, let's not be doing that again. Hang on, we're trying to address a legal matter at the moment. So some of these pings I do have. The dogs have opened up the wall now. One of the things I do intend to do towards the end of the week when I'm off is work out what the hell they keep managing to trample over. Because they are doing well at that. Working down here a bit, because once you're done for a bit. Something else I intend to do towards the end of the week and in the weeks to come after is I have plans to do some more experiments, generally in things such as other bobbin lace techniques, I suppose is the word for it. Now, the truth of the matter is there really is only one way to, swap two bobbins positions. You either succeed or you fail, right? The end result is the same. However, as we've talked about before, there is a difference between the areas, certain areas in kind of came up with their own styles, and I wish to experiment with some of those. Although I did have a small heart attack, because one I really want to I won't say get into, but one that I do feel quite drawn to, even though primarily it's usually flowery, which is not a me thing, as you know, is Buck's Point. Now, having watched a few videos, having read a couple of books, and all of that kind of jazz, I feel comfortable that I could have a good go. The concern is, okay, I can't remember the exact number of bobbins here, even though I've only recently just put them all together. I think it was 45 pairs. Might have been one more. It might be a bit more than that. It's somewhere between 49 and 45 pairs, right? To make a 5 centimetre bookmark was 35 pairs. 5 frigging centimetres. 2 inches, people. 2 inches. That is an almighty buttload of bobbins for a very small amount of space. Now, as I said, I'm not against that as a principle. But if you consider and look at what I'm doing now, and this is, well, 2¼ inches wide. So we're talking a bookmark that's nearly as wide as this. That's flipping wide for a bookmark, is it not? 2 inches is quite a decent bookmark. It's more of a page, So I have reservations on the size, but I don't have the knowledge to shrink it. Because obviously with torchon, as you know, I took the pattern that I had and I did that I'd done, and I kind of went, okay, well, I've now made it slightly bigger, and I've made, I've changed this bit and I changed that bit and I did all of that. And then I said, well, I want to use a hair thinner thread, which did. And then I want to make the grid a hair bigger. And it came out exactly as I intended it to. So from that perspective, I was successful in this for resizing it, because I had already made a square with a certain size thread and could use intelligence to compare what I had with what my brain wanted and make a rough guesstimate as the change, and maybe an atom or two out, but I got the output I desired, which was that these cloth stitches, while still very dense, are no longer puckering like they were before. So I got, in my mind, this is perfect. This is exactly what we want. And when I did when I started with the spangles, hated it, so we referred to it as test triangle. The test triangle came out exactly how I wanted it, just sadly didn't like the spangles and needed to stop with the spangles, so we did. Otherwise, this could be our 10th triangle. Think on that one for a minute. I could be halfway around this square. And I am very aware of that, clearly. So it is, we have some experiments we can do. I obviously need to do something as is, and then experiment as to how, it's a bit like knitting, right? With knitting, you have a gauge, and they say to you, when you make this pattern, your knitting gauge should over 10 centimetres or whatever, you should have so many stitches and so many rows. And everyone hates doing swatches because it feels like a waste of knitting. Well, of course, it is a waste of knitting in the sense that you are supposed to wash and block it so that, and then measure that you got the gauge in question. Not knit it, go, yeah, that's close enough, and then unpick it, which is what a lot of us do because, well, no offence, but, kind of a 4-inch square is potentially, a reasonable amount of yarn and a reasonable amount of knitting sometimes, depending on the size of the yarn. And maybe we don't want to, have 1,000 little nasty test squares floating about, especially if it's not right. Because you're not going to chop all the yarn off, wash it, press it, and then go, nah, that's wrong. Because now you've got to make another one. how many balls of wool do you get through before you work out what's wrong with it, right? So from that perspective, the whole swatchy thing. Now, with lacework, of course, you can't really swatch it in the same way because, well, you need to have pricked it. You need to have done lots of things. You have to have wound the bobbins. You have to have. There is a lot more in terms of work for it, right? So from that perspective, it is. Making the experiments is not a fun thing. It's a bit like, to be honest, it's the same with weaving. The advantage, I would argue, with weaving is that your set and your stuff is usually... Well, that's not even true. I was going to say it's more apparent whether it's good or bad on the loom. Because they tell you how many picks per inch you should get. And a pick... pick goes with throw. So when you open the shed, not the garden shed, the shed which is the triangle formed by the warp threads when you lift or sink some of them compared to their friends, right? You then throw your shuttle between the two. This is one pick. It's one throw actually, but it is one pick. So picks per inch is a weaver term to decide, a bit like rows of knitting. It's how many rows of weaving did you get, and is this the answer? Now, much like knitting, you can get different picks per inch with the exact same setup, depending on how tight you tighten the warp. Because, of course, with a weaving loom, you can kind of make it drum tight, or you can have it saggy. There are no thought police. And if you have it too tight, the weft doesn't tend to merge in with it so much. If you have it too baggy, it tends to merge too much, and you end up with... So, if you have too tight a warp, and it's not how it's supposed to look, you can end up with a warp-faced weave, which means that the lines coming down are far more prominent than the weft going across. Or you have the opposite, where you have a weft face weave, which is where the uppy downy bits completely smother over all of the over the warp threads, and you can't see them. The ideal amount is roughly half and half, depending on the pattern that you're doing. But in plain weave, for example, you should see as much of each, and then it is called an even weave. Now, sometimes this is not what you want, just because it is not what you want. So, from that perspective, that is fine. Once again, the thought police are not, not going to come knocking because you decided you wanted it different. But, obviously, it is still a potential issue, because as you advance your work and you do your work, if you do not maintain an even weave, the picks per inch will change. As a result, it is very easy to end up with making, say, two sides of something, like my bedspread that I made, where you end up with one that's 6 inches shorter than the other, even though you did exactly the same crap for both of them, because you made one, then made a second one. It was all still on the loom, you hadn't taken anything off. Wish you kind of had, because then at least I could have realised that maybe it was getting out of sync. But no, you get to the end, you chop them off and then go, oh, they're not twins. They're barely sisters, So from that point of view, very much unideal. And of course, lace making is very much the same. I mean, one of the few advantages of lace making is that when you put the pricking down, so, when you prick the holes, if the holes measure 6 inches from side to side, the final result will be 6 inches side to side. This is one of the few beauties of the pricking things in lace, is that if you want to make it for a very specific size, well, that's actually quite easy because, well, it is. Now, The Lace 8 program that I use, which I found even more bugs in yesterday, and I was getting really quite irate with it, to the point I crashed it at one point. I clicked on things and the cursor wouldn't change to the right thing, even though I did all the things to get it set to the right thing. It was not having none of it. I had to close the app and come back in before it would do it. I made a motif, but when you go to place the motif, it hides half the things, so you can't tell if it's in the right place or not. And there's just a whole host of really stupid dumb bugs. Now, I can't remember the exact date I paid for that, but it's been a few years. And you're telling me no one else has noticed this? That there is no bug fix for this? I find it hard to believe. I really do. But we are in the position that we're in, and it is a myriad of bugs. I wish there was another alternative. I really, really do. But I am stuck with this one. Now, it is really designed for things like what we have here, which is torchon lace. It is really designed for this. It will do other things, but it's really kind of the person who makes it, or the person who designed it, for want of a better word, because she doesn't make it. She clearly is a torchon lace maker. I want to have all the tools in my armour that I can have, so that on a per project basis, I can decide what is the right answer. So much like I knit and crochet, and I can do a variety of styles of knitting, although realistically knitting is still knitting, it doesn't make a lot of difference. But I can do a number of styles of crochet, so one of my favourites, of course, is Tunisian, but that's because I like making blankets. But I'm comfortable, there is kind of no stitch that puts the fear up me, right? So, from that point of view, I want to be able to pick, for a project, the lace style that suits the style of the project, or the final result that I want, not be pinned in by the fact that the only kind of lace I can make is, say, this one. Now, this is arguably one of the most common kinds, and it is certainly normal for beginners to start here. And this pin is better than politicians on a good day. Right, so let's have a nice new shiny straight one. Sorry about that, I had to sneeze. Itchy nose. So, like everything, I'm really interested in Bucks Point lace. Don't like picots, not interested in picots. Picots can go do one. They just... in the right place, I can see a point for them. I can. In the right place. And the answer, where is the right place, you ask? Not on my lace. Now, as I said, there are times where I can imagine a picot does add to the output. So there are a couple of patterns I've seen where, remember I said about, like, so this is a little block, then this is a different block, and you get lace where, say, this block would join with, say, instead of these blocks being a square, if you imagine that this was a big groundwork of its own and it was like a square here, instead of having a ton of groundwork, they have like little fronds that come off to give it, to join things together, which is good. I'm cool with that. But some of those sometimes have picots on, and what they do is they make them into little diamonds. So instead of just being a straight frond of here, link to here, it's a bit more decorative in that it becomes kind of a diamond, and they put little picos on the two sort of middle points in the diamond, because obviously that's where you pin it. And I actually do think that in that scenario, picos don't look so bad. But in terms of on the edge of a bookmark, on the edge of, I don't know, if I was using Buck's Point to make these squares, for example, which would be a bit more curious because it's a different angle to torsion, so that could add all manner of complexities to it, but we'll ignore that for the moment. Let's pretend that it would be easily simple, because Buck's Point, I think, is done at an angle of 54 degrees. Well, 60 is easier because you can have triangles. So you do 6 triangles and make a hexagon sort of thing, and that's fine, we can work with that. Because then you can make, individual triangles and bits to fill in the gaps and make it a straight edge. We can all work with that. But 54 degrees doesn't fit in 360 half as well, right? Jesus, dogs, shut up. And so from that point of view, hang on. Puppies! Can you not? Now I've got the cough and I need a drink. For Christ's sake. It's, as I said, yesterday and today have been a day. And Monday's gonna be even worse. Let's not go to Monday. Let's not talk of Monday. So, but the Buck's Point thing has a kind of an advantage in that, I assume in part due to the way the ground stitches work, apparently it has a level of elasticity. So for clothing edging, not, God help me, do not put lace on my clothes. I found out yesterday that the new t-shirt I bought, which I thought was a plain t-shirt, had frigging lace around the neck. Now, lace can be really itchy, but it was just it had lace on it. Anyway, so yeah, I like the idea of the Buck's Point lace, and I've seen a particular bookmark that I kind of like. But there are things I'd like to do to it already to make it a bit more me, right? But I don't have, until I actually make one, the experience really to mess with a pattern. You really do, I need to see how this really turns out, what it's like to work, and how confident I would feel that if I changed something, it wouldn't, make it structurally incapable of integrity. It's is this actually feasible? Why are you licking your face? Are you bleeding somewhere? Or are you just being annoying? Can you make your mind up? Amy, sweetheart, let me have a look. There's no blood, you're just being annoying. Right. Is there a pin in that? No, there isn't a pin in that. I had the pin, I just didn't put the pin in it. Right. So I need to make something that is already known to be successful at the size it's already known to be successful, which means I need to work out whatever the hell the thread that they were using was, But one thing I have noticed, torsion, this stuff, lace patterns are fairly common. You can find them for free, or at least some for free, all over the place. Buck's Point patterns, you can see finished products. Very few places seem to actually have patterns. Which also means then you can't look at other people's work and kind of go, I like that bit, I don't like that bit, but if you mix that bit of theirs and that bit of theirs, that could work, and, which is kind of how I came up with this, right? So I took some ideas of some other things and mixed them about a bit and came up with this, because this is not overly complicated, let's truly be honest, but it's still mine. But there is this bit of you that's kind of going, okay, I want to try this, I want to do this, but I almost have very limited options as to what I can do. I also want to try some of the tape lace thing again, as I've got some videos and I can read, but I've got a pattern for a butterfly. Now, you may recall that with the Celtic knot that I did, one of the big complaints I had with that was because the Celtic knot overlapped itself, which, you know, it's a knot, of course it does. The instructions that came with it and how they explained to do the crossover points, and the fact that you had to like make 2 inches of this one and then start here on another 2 inches of this bit, and then you meet back with the first bit, and so you join this bit to the first bit, and then you have to finish doing the first bit a bit more, and then you do the second bit, and then you start a third bit because you've now finished the first bit, and just whereas the butterfly that I've seen, you start at the start and you do bobbiny, 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 with probably a lot of twisty turny bits, but bobbiny, bobbiny, bobbiny bit, get to the other end and finish. There is no travelling over, there is no starty stoppy, starty stoppy, starty stoppy, and so once again that would go quite fast, and I do like that kind of style, and in some ways I feel that would be really appropriate for a net curtain. So to have, let's call it a doodle, more of a doodle look. So it's a squiggly doodle, and you join it all together. You know, well, sorry, you work it, but it kind of links together in the little links that I was talking about. You do the little linky bits, and well, you kind of make it in one piece, but you actually only need a small handful of bobbins. Because that really is quite practical to work on, because, well, you've only got a small handful of bobbins. And then when you're done with one, you chuck it over there, and then when you're back, you grab hold of it. It really is quite a practical thing to work on. I did show you the other day the pictures of the lady who was made a lace over shirt thing, but that was kind of sewn into the shirt. But a lace kind of shirt with a shirt attachment kind of thing. For she did hers on a bolster pillow, and she did it with like 80 gazillion bobbins, and I mean, seriously, that was not being a kind of sarcastic amount of bobbins. There was like 6 inches deep of bobbins on top, and that doesn't mean there weren't more hanging down in front of her. Which is kind of what I suspect, because I counted them, and there were no way enough bobbins to be all of them, right? Because Sado counted them. So, you know, we do need that kind of perspective sometimes. And, you know, when you're doing something, again, because I have big aspirations and my brain likes to commit me to large amounts of project just because it can, you need to be comfortable. And obviously, if I was making, I know, an 8 pair of bobbin wide bit of tape that doodled round and had joiny bits, even some beads, because I have considered that some beads could be quite nice. If you've got the right beads, the silvery ones that glisten in the sunlight, they could be quite pretty. I mean, I'm not, you know, generally a beady person. I don't do sequins, beads, flowers. I like dull. I'm a bit of a bloke in that sense. But in the right place, some beads could work, right? I concede this. So again, if you've got the tapey bit and you know, have some frondy bits and maybe some of the frondy bits meet at a bead. So instead of having a spider, because we all know I don't like spiders, instead of having the lace spider, you might have a load of bobbins that meet at a bead and then come back again. Well, that could work. That could be a thing, right? So there's a lot of potential options in life. I mean, let's face it, we knew that when we were designing this. But it's the having a go of the different types, some of the different techniques, trying to work out what the f is actually different between some of them, because, as I said, there's some of them really do seem to be just the same stuff. So yes, I do have I have some ideas that I'd like to do. And so, to stop you guys getting as bored watching me make the same triangle as I fear my brain will get bored with making the same triangle, we shall make some other things. And we shall do some colours. Just because, well, it's not a net curtain, so then you can do colours. So, of course, like bookmarks can be any colour you like. Although black is evil, we know, you know, never suggest a crafter to work with black. If they volunteer, that is one thing, but never say to them, oh yes, can you make it in black? Because they will perform voodoo on you when you're not looking, right? It's just not a good thing to do. So I have some plans. There's going to be a bookmark, a butterfly. Part of me was considering getting to the end of this triangle and doing something else, but as I said, I've got to print it out, I've got to prick it, I've got to wind the bobbins. It's not a 5-minute job, and I think this is where, especially for weavers and lace makers and so on, because it can take days to dress your loom. Now, on a good time, it takes a few hours, right? But, for example, let's say I was feeling more photogenic, which, of course, is not a thing. But, let's say I was a bit more photogenic and I didn't mind being on camera quite so much. Do you really want to watch 2 hours of me sitting down with what looks like a picture frame with broom handles, because, well, that's what it is, of a warping board, measuring out, 500 bits of string, only to then chain them up, walk over to my loom and spend just as frigging long, if not longer, putting them on my loom, then spending a couple of hours threading the heddles, couple of hours putting them through the reed, testing them out, thinking, fuck, and then having to redo some chunks of it because, well, that's pretty much a guarantee. So it is easily a number of days worth of spare time. I mean, it's not so bad when you're on holiday and stuff, but because you can do much more of it in one go because you haven't got to work around work sort of thing. But it becomes one of those, it becomes almost multiple days, and all you're doing is the setup. You haven't even, and like I say, with weaving, you can do all of that and discover you've done it completely wrong, right? And you would be surprised how often, as a weaver, you can't even count to 4 without screwing it up. Because you've got shafts like this, and you maybe want 1 heddle from each shaft. You'd think that was really easy, wouldn't you? You're wrong. Well, it is, but it's also spectacularly easy to even think that you've done it right when you haven't. Especially if there is any form of, it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4 sort of thing. It's maybe 1, 3, 2, 4, 4, 6, kind of 1, 3, 2, 3. It's a bit more random, because then you, frankly, it's almost a case of you almost wonder why you even pretended that you had a chance of getting it right, because you haven't. You really haven't the chance of getting it right first time. And if you do, you die of shock, because, well, it's a miracle. It is a Christmas miracle. And so, weaving's like that. Now, lace making, as you will have noticed, the concept of lace making is really quite basic and simple, because it is. Achieving it, however, is not. It is so easy to forget to twist this, or somehow put the pin in the wrong thing so that when you put a bit of tension on it, it all goes to pot. It is because, of course, there are no knots in it. And so, to a large extent, until you've tied off the end, which is why, of course, the pins stay in, all hell could break loose if, for whatever reason, it got free of the pillow. So, yeah, it is. Lace making is good in some ways, but at least it's predictable in size. But of course, the speed of it, one of the biggest slowdowns, as you will know, is the poking of the pin. Now, when we do ground stitch, not that we're currently doing a ground stitch here, but when we do a ground stitch, we, and these rose grounds are effectively made in a very similar manner, which of course is half stitch, pin, half stitch. And that's what you do in the ground. Half stitch, pin, half stitch, next, half stitch, pin, half stitch. The only difference with the rose ground is the order you do them in, the fact that you work kind of a square, and then you do a bit of a fancy jig at the end to give it a couple of corners, right? So, but the truth of the matter is that it is a very similar stitch. Under Buck's Point, we do cross twist, pin, cross twist, pin, right, for our ground here. With Buck's Point, you do cross triple twist. Fine, that's an easy enough thing to remember. But you don't cover the pin. So that when you go to do, row 2, for example, well, the top one can slide around the pins, leading to uneven holes. Because maybe you pulled that one a bit tighter than the other one. And then, because when you do honeycombs, which we established that the honeycombs, I like honeycombs, but not in my net curtain, that we find ourselves looking at it, but there you only do 2 twists. And then if you have a gimp thread, well, depending on which side of it and what you're doing, and then in the video I was watching last night, because, I was trying to relax a little bit and try not to kill people, and so the lady had the honeycombs, which give you the little kind of oval holes, and in Buck's Point they're slightly different looking oval holes to torsion oval holes, if nothing else due to the angle of all of the pins that you're about to put in. Thank you for that, Rory. But she had a gimp thread to go round the little things to make them stand out a little more, and to be honest, I quite like that. It does give you these little it does seem to make them slightly more circular, and that can look quite pretty. And obviously you can use a nice contrasty thread or even a shiny one and make it a little bit more interesting. And Rory, get your nose and paws out of it, my man. Oh, you want a hug? Okay. But so she's got like the circles, and inside the circles you do 2 twists, outside the circles you do 3. Great. Except for the top outside circles bit. So a bit like this, we started with a point, and then each time we added a bobbin, we moved down the point, right? And it was a similar kind of deal, right? There were picots involved, which, as I've already discussed, they just no. They're like spiders, just no. Anyway, picots can be ignored. You can kind of overlook picots if you want to. Really, you can. So ignoring the picots and the complexity actually that the picot then added to the problem, so it would have been a lot easier without. She got to doing this bit, and you've got, if you think of like this ground stitch here in the middle, right, and this triangle. So she's going to effectively, I know they're not the right shape because there's 6 of them and all the rest of it. But you imagine each of these rows round was going to have a bigger thread round it to make the little squares, to interweave between the little squares, right? Because they were actually circular, every 4th one was not part of a circle. Now, the outside ones, so these ones, still got 3 twists. Got only 2 twists. But the inside ones, let me draw one. Because I literally don't have any other way of explaining this with what I've got to hand. So, oops. Right. It's the wrong size grid, but bite me. So, the hopefully you can see that. In fact, let me do the good old days, right? So with this, I'll try and make my dots reasonable size. Like this. This is a Bucks Point honeycomb. That's the word I was after. And if you have a friend for it, you then would have a friend here, like this. And that the thread then comes round like this between them. Okay? But there is arguably spots here. So, as the spots, and they're probably a bit further down, but bite me, go with it, right? So let's finish this coming around here like this, and this goes up here like this, and we'll draw one more for good measure. It's a bit close to the edge, but it's fine. Like this, and then you come around like this, and you come up like this, right? So, and then there'd be another one here, and some more here like this, right? So these ones get the two twists like the inside ones do. These ones get 3. Why? Nobody, she doesn't explain any of it. She just says, well, they do, because they do. Why? Surely, these should get 3 too. Because they're outside and you need the strength and the twisty bits to... No explanation whatsoever in the slightest. And... bugs me. Just bugs me. Because it bugs me. Well, it does. And then, you know, in this bit, you'd have kind of your ground bits. As I say, I know it's the wrong angles, like this. Like, you know, kind of along these lines, like this. And you get 3 between each of all of them. And then there's like the top. Usually this isn't an angle, but, you know, whatever. So you then have a couple of passive pairs that run like this. And then you end up with your little picot-y things. Picot-y kind of. Because they always do it with a little circle around them like this. Right? But there is a bit of you that's kind of going, I get it, but I don't get it. There's no one to ask why these only get 2. What are you doing, Rory? And why these ones get 3. And so I need to poke around a bit more to see if I can find someone who can explain to me why they only get 2 and not 3. And because surely, because, and all of those kind of aspects. So I do kind of, because I want to understand, because personally I want to add 3 to the top. 3 because she said you do 3 because it's outside. Well, those are outside, so they have 3, right? Now, given that in previous videos I have caught them making mistakes. Sorry, I've got a bit of a wonky pin here and I could feel it, and I wanted to sort that out a bit. There we go. So there is a bit of you that's kind of going, I get it, and you know, if them's the rules, them's the rules. But I want to understand more as to why they're the rules, because, well, A, it seems a bit of a weird rule that you'd have 2 on top and 3 underneath, and all of that kind of stuff. But for want of a better expression, Bucks Point seems to be a bit elitist, in that it's almost the, oh, well, if you don't know. Oh, if you don't know. Well, if you don't know. And it's kind of like, and I've been reading a lot recently, because, as we all know, most crafts have some level of snobbery, right? One's not using silk. Why is one bothering? You know, because I can't afford it, you know, or I'm going to be using it in such a way that, you know, silk's a bit too... I mean, silk is not a delicate thread. Much as we treat silk clothes as delicate, silk itself... What are you doing, Rory? Out of there. Oh, you want up, don't you? Come on. Come on. You have chosen to try and come through a table, a laptop and some books. Come on then. Come on, my man. Come on. Get on with it. Because you're only going to go back where you were 2 seconds ago, so get on with it. Come on. There you go. You've come up through the smallest possible gap. There you go. I had to make it bigger so you could get in it. And now you're back where you started on the other side of me. Amy, you are not missing out, my good girl. You are... Amy, what have you been doing? Your face smells like a builder's butt crack. It does. You have breath that could strip paint from 1,000 yards. What have you been doing? Come on. Enough. But yes, so I have ideas and things I want to play with, but again, because I haven't the prior knowledge, I can't just say, well, screw it, I'm going to do 3. I probably could, but, well, in fact, I can. Nothing stops me, but, you know, you should always follow the recipe before you mess with the recipe, right? Now what? Ping. Here we go. Let me read this. This is going to be a long one. Yes, you're right, dear. Now, so yes, I have these ideas and things I'd like to make, but I also don't really want to wind up, you know, like 50 pairs of bobbins to make this tiny thing and go, I don't like that. Now, not liking it isn't quite so essential. It's not the end result that I have to like. I have to appreciate the technique of making it. That is the most important aspect of many of my experiments, is either to have learnt something or to have learnt that I hate something. That's perfectly a valid learn, right? And so picots, spiders, tallies. We've already established that tallies are a little bit... Now, Buck's Point and certainly Bedfordshire lace. Bedfordshire lace used to be pretty much made of tallies. So we won't be doing much of that, because I suck at tallies. And arguably, yes, I'd probably get better at tallies, but I don't want to get better at tallies because I don't really want tallies. Tallies to me are almost like hard knots in the middle. They're not knots, obviously, but they just have this kind of hard knot kind of texture, because while lace is not as delicate and, you know, bobbin lace when off the pillow, even when you washed it, is not as flimsy and as delicate in the hand as you might think. If you ever held a pair of women's stockings or tights, they're made, that's really soft on the hand and really delicate, and it will catch on your skin, and it will, you know, if you've got slightly rough hands of any form, bear in mind, looking at the state of my hands, you can tell that I do, right? If you've got rough bits of hand, if you've got, you know, the slightest rough fingernail, you will rip great holes in it. This stuff is not that. This stuff is actually arguably quite robust. But it's also the actual, you know, the actual thread you make it from is not stiff. It's not sharp or anything. It's normal sewing thread kind of stuff. Well, it's not, but it is, right? But the moment you twist it to make patterns, it has an element of almost self-starching in that it becomes stronger. And in all the twistings, it becomes stiffer. And so it's really not. I mean, you can make it really baggy, so it still is very baggy and soft, but by default, it's got a bit more zing to it. You know, if you've ever held a pile of batting or I have literally no words because my brain just can't at the moment. Shit you use for weaving. If you know the fleece, but the processed fleece, so it's all clean and tidy and stroked, and it's been, you know, laid out beautifully and all the rest of it. That is a really soft feel in your hand. If you spin it correctly, it maintains some of the loft and the fluff. So if you spin it wooden, it retains them. If you spin it worsted, it becomes more like this sort of thread in that it's much more dense and compact. And if you overspin it, it becomes like knicker elastic and actually can be quite hard. This lace has that almost a semi-hard to it, in that it's not hard, but it doesn't feel like, you know, like stockings or tights under your hand. It feels stiffer than you'd expect. Almost feels a bit like a paper cutout, but not quite, because obviously it's not. But it has almost a paper cutout feel to it, in that there's the strength of the paper with holes in it, and then almost like sharper edges on it. So from that point of view, I really wouldn't want it against my skin so much. Fuck's sake, phone. Have you ever had an argument with your phone where it doesn't put a capital letter in for some reason, so you delete it, press up arrow, so you know the shift key, and it still doesn't fucking do it because it turns it off again, and it's hang on, people. I do apologise. I need to reply to this. Yeah, hang on, people. I really do apologise for this. Why is it everyone always waits till I'm not at work to pass on me with stuff? leave them to it, because I can't leave them to it because I've got to deal with it during somebody else's workday, even though my workday is finished. Let's see what we can do. Thank you for trying to bath. That really makes me feel better. Everything's going to get on my nerves today, isn't it? Need to do the pin thing. That's a stupidly bent pin. What the fuck? No, I do need to do this. sticks. Because we can. Now obviously loading them is a little bit more of a challenge because you can't just slide it underneath. But they do hold them a lot better. Especially if you get the bits in the right place. Like that. You're too far the other way. So you, like that. That now holds quite nicely. Now I felt something really rough on the pillow. It's because there's a pin as well. So you can now go over there. I think this will mean that the pile of bobbins looks bigger because they are more regimented and can't kind of flop between each other like they were before, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's not necessarily a good thing either, of course. We'll have to decide, but we can do that as we go along. And we need you two. My thumb is so sore. You didn't want to undo a little bit, and then of course you wanted to undo a lot. put some sticks around some of this because it's getting a bit busy and we won't need them for quite a while. So take you out and you out. Let's put some sticks around some of this because, well, it's going to be a problem otherwise, aren't you? Right. 1, 2, 3. Another freaking pin. I seem to leave pins in the edge of my pillow and forget about them. I seem very good at doing that at the moment. Right. Let's put you there so I can try and pull on there, but my thumb hurts. There we go. And then sort you all so you're all kind of in the same place. You in the middle are looking a little bit dodgy. You're a bit flimsy, but you slide way too easy on that. That's the only annoyance. Is that you're not staying back there more. But I can't really pin you because I'd have to pin through something important, which I don't really want to do. Can I find a spot fairly far back? Yeah, there you go. That'll do. That helps. Right, let's put you around the corner now. Makes a bit more space, not a lot. More space. There's you. Now, I think I also need you. But I can't tell right now. Yes, I need you. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Twisty, twisty, twist. You're even doing the bobbins thing is painful at the moment. I know it looks tiny, but as you can see there is a little red kind of sore bit on my thumb. But because fingers are made of like nerve endings, and it's kind of, if it was on the back of my thumb I probably wouldn't really care, but the problem is it's not, and it's making it sore. What are you stuck on? There you go. Itches. Itch. Ow, ow, ow. Itch. Where's my scratchy thing? Do a scratchy thing. Hang on. That's a good bit. Whoever invented back scratchers is a god. Right. Fuck off, you stupid idiot. can't people just leave me alone? Dog's going nuts. How do I keep managing to do that? How do I keep managing to forget a bobbin? And of course, no, I didn't add one. Did I? No. This feels too many. It is. That's because I haven't twisted you yet. Getting itchy from frustration. It's not a good sign. Hi, Nautical. How are you? No, is the short answer to that. Not at all. No. Distinctly not, my friend. I mean, I didn't go to a funeral, but I feel like I did, because the funeral was my job, so... I do feel very much... Will you shut up, Amy? I have not got the patience for your shit today. No. I have touched upon it briefly. Technically, I have concluded at my current employer today. This is not a choice matter. We are being transferred to another company. And I've nothing against the new company, we really haven't. We only just got our terms and conditions for our new role starting on Monday. And they don't feel accurate. Well, it's nearly 4 o'clock. What the hell are we going to do about it now? They've known this since, like, September or August or something. But they've only just managed to get round to confirming and writing it all down. I got my new equipment today. Yeah, the phone smashed. And it's just... I've looked at the thing and I've read the document about 4 times. And it's... The other day I touched on the fact that there was a book, and every time I tried to read it, I just couldn't get past the first page. I fell asleep. This is almost the same thing. I've read all the words, and yes, there are words, but that's all I can really tell you. None of it's sinking in. None of it's meaning anything to me. And they're not difficult. It really isn't. But my brain's just kind of going, I see words. That's nice. Well, what about them? There are words, yes. But I need to know what they mean. No, you don't. And so it's a little. I'm very much a shadow of my former self at the moment. I'm very stressy, very irritable, clearly. But I am struggling. Because I even phoned them to say that the phone they sent me got smashed somehow in transit, even though the box arrived in perfect nick and the laptop's fine. But the phone has almost like bite marks in it, and for once the dogs did not get to touch it. So, wasn't me. No, it's fine. And of course, the HR lady that we've been dealing with is out this afternoon. Well, she didn't answer the stuff this morning, and she's certainly not going to answer the stuff this afternoon, is she? It's all proving to be a bit much at the moment. And we had to go to actual on site yesterday, which was fine. I haven't got a problem with being on site, really don't. But what I did have a problem was that we didn't actually discuss anything useful. So it just meant that we didn't do any work yesterday. Yeah, I know what you mean. While I do and I don't, right? I'm sure you'll understand this. My dad retired. And I forgot to add one, like a dipshit. My dad retired at 50. Now, he was not a wealthy man. And due to my mother running off with some knob who has since divorced her, by the way, because they did get married. So, whatever that was, that didn't work out for her. She managed to persuade courts, despite lying on legal documents as to various aspects. She got half of all my dad's savings, money, wealth, anything that got valued over like 3 pence was, oh, well, we need that, So she fleeced him for half of everything. And I hope she chokes on it. I hope she choked on it. I don't even know if she's still alive. But it is, it just kind of... It reminds me of parents. It reminds me of all the hassle that my dad went through because my mother decided to fleece him. But he had retired. By the time they split, my dad had already retired. My dad retired, in fact, before I went into hospital, so it was not a surprise thing. He was already retired, right? My mother knew that. My mother still had a job. My mother was earning considerably more, at least 50-something% more than my dad was at the time. When he retired, he was a manager. Don't get me wrong, but he was earning crap all or nothing. It was 21 grand, right? She was earning at least 32. She was, had moved in with this bloke. They were planning, they were trying to buy a house, which is why they wanted the money. It just kind of... He retired. Now, I was talking to someone this morning about this. I am not my dad. I would love to have retired at the same age as my dad, because damn hell yeah. But in my mind, because I did all the things that my dad told me, I expected to be in a position that, should I so wish, I could have retired at 50. Well, I can't afford it. Short answer, can't afford it. And plus, of course, the government are expecting me currently to work to 67 and talking of raising it to 69. I definitely can't face 17 more years of this. I really can't. But my dad retired, and my dad, like so many people who retire before him, when a lot of people retire, they go, oh, thank fuck, I don't have to get up for work in the morning, so they get up a bit later. So would I. I'm not going to deny that. My dad spent 20 years watching Border Force and, like Please Stop or whatever, right? Smoking his pipe like 18 hours a day. Are we then shocked and mortified? No, we are not. When it's discovered basically one of his lungs has turned into a big cancer tumour and the other one's making a bold effort to continue the idea. No, we're not, because you don't smoke 18 hours a day for 20 years and have been smoking since you were a early teenager at some level and not really. I mean, if you do, you're a friggin' miracle, right? So I was not surprised by what turned out to kill him in the end, but I don't suffer from that. I might die of, being overweight and unfit, but I will not die of substance abuse, shall we call it, in that sense. But his idea of a hectic week, and he would call it hectic, was travelling 100 yards up the road to take the dog to the vet. I barely considered having an operation a hectic week. There are a lot of things that I do, and I almost doesn't even register that I had to do them. To him, the fact that he had to do the washing is kind of a put out, and you're like, What do you mean? Don't you normally do that? I mean, because of course, when he was working, my mother was still there. My mother did the shopping, my mother did the washing, my mother did the housework, my mother did my mother. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not going to pretend that my father and mother's marriage was the height of beauty and the best marriage in living history, right? I am not stupid. My dad could be a bit of an arse, because, hello, I'm related to him, I know that. But at the same time, so he got away without doing an awful lot of things for most of his adult life, because realistically, he moved out of home with his mother, into pretty much in with my mother, and married her, and never really had to do any of it. I'm sure there was a brief period of time when he had to do something, but let's put it this way, he couldn't even make cheese on toast, so let's put that into the perspective of things. He therefore obviously found it stressful to become a singleton and have to do all the things that realistically he had not been responsible for ever, if at all, or at least for the best part of nearly 30 years. So I did have some sympathy for him. I'm not an arse. Oh, well, I am an arse, but I'm not that much of an arse. So I did have some sympathy for him, just because he was having to do things that he was not used to doing. 3, 4, sneak you in here. Do you like my fancy new lace bobbin holdery things? Aren't they snazzy? They're much thicker than the previous flat ones I had. The only slight annoyance is that they don't tend to stay still, so you have to put pins through them. But there are worse things in life. Anyway, so from that point of view, I did have a lot of sympathy for my dad. I really did. But at the same time, you could have made an effort. You could have been a bit more involved in it. You really could. You really could have had just that little bit more involvement with, even if, just driving the poor woman to the shop, and helping her carry it out to the car, because he'd never been to Sainsbury's. He had no idea. He'd never been to the food store. He didn't even know the makes of stuff that he ate. Trying to explain to him that, basically there is no other ketchup than Heinz ketchup. Don't even waste your time thinking, oh, I should try this. No, you shouldn't. Just don't even bother, right? We had that conversation. And then we had to show him how to cook it, because he didn't know how. We had to show him how to use the washing machine. I did manage to persuade him to buy a dishwasher. It was one of the better things I did for him. But I did love my dad a hell of a lot. But he really was out of time. He was a man of not, kind of like the current age where, men are cooks and nurses. He was very much almost of the era where that's womanly duties. You do not have male nurses. You have doctors and surgeons who are male, and you have nurses who are female. He was very much almost of that mindset. Now, he was not supportive of me as a person, so, hence a lot of my negative self-worth, and because he constantly told me how shit I was. So I never got praise from my parents, neither of them, to be honest. Whatever I did, no matter how good it was not enough. When I got grade 8 flute, I did not get top marks, therefore I might as well have failed, because it was, oh well, whatever. When I got my school results, I got distinctly above normal average for when I took my exams. First words out of my dad's mouth were, why did you fail this? Actually, that's not a fail. But hey, you see it as a fail, so now so do I. Thanks for that. I had quite a tough upbringing, and the fact that the negativity towards me has continued throughout my entire adult life is part of the reason I'm self-negative, because it is my form of projection. Because if I call myself fat and ugly, for example, pretty much nothing someone can say to me is worse. And it's not how you should live, but it is. And I struggle with that because I have throughout my entire life seemingly, because being diagnosed with things is more of a modern trait. I was not diagnosed with dyslexia till after I left school, and someone noticed and took me to the centre, because there was me reciting the alphabet and using my fingers, right, in the library to try and find like S or whatever it was. And they took me down and went, "You're dyslexic. What? Didn't you know?" And it's like, no. I'd put capital letters in the middle of words. I can misspell Liz 20 different ways on a sheet of paper, and yet no one noticed. Now, they did know what dyslexia was when I was a kid. You know, the world was not that backward. I am not that old. But they just didn't diagnose it. They just thought you were lazy. Oh, you need to try harder. It is... So from that point of view, I've had a history of being told that my best effort, irrelevant of the fact of how hard I actually tried, because of course only I know how hard I tried. Oh, for fuck's sake, dog! There is literally the entire couch. Come on. Come on, you little windbag. Come on. Get your furry butt out. So because I did try hard, and we've talked about this one before, I get quite upset when people tell me how hard they think I tried. No, you cannot. It's a bit like, Nautical, let's pretend that you're feeling really upset today, because obviously you've been to a funeral. You're sorely distraught over the loss of whoever it was who had died. I can't tell you you're not. First of all, I'm not there. Secondly, I haven't really met you. But more to the point, how can anyone tell you, no, you're not? Only you truly know how you feel. We all know one of those. If it's any consolation, I did once say if I ever found out for sure that my mother had died, I'd probably hold a street party. So, bear that one in mind. But, if someone says to you, if you're feeling unhappy because how something was handled, or if you're feeling uncomfortable for an environment, and yesterday was quite an uncomfortable environment, no one can honestly say to you, no, you didn't, or no, you shouldn't, because, I'm sorry, you have not lived my entire life. You cannot tell me how those feelings can or cannot bring up other events, because you were not there. You do not know, you cannot see in my soul, much as you might like to believe you can. You just can't tell people how they're feeling. And one of the things that we've been hearing a lot is, oh, you need to be positive, you need to be, you need to be trusting, Well, first of all, don't lie to us then. Secondly, you can't force a number of feelings. Now, you can often help someone feel better by making them laugh, finding something that they find funny, complimenting them on something, making them feel a little less shit. But you cannot go to the point that their ribs hurt and that they've pissed themselves from laughter. If they're really miserable, even if they do briefly, they will rapidly fall back to where they were. And so, with that in mind, you can't tell people to love somebody. You can tell people to hate on somebody, because negative emotions are more easy to believe, for want of a better word. But the truth of it is that you can't force someone to love someone. You can pretend, but you can't force someone to love them. You can't force someone to trust them. It is something you grow. It is a seed you plant and nurture and grow. Now, when you meet a brand new person, there are no negative connotations attached to them. they do, by default, as a rule, and I do mean as a rule, have a more positive potential. Because you know not of their past failings and their little shitness and their attitudes and the things about them that you hate yet, because, well, you haven't met them yet. To an extent, it also takes time. Now, most of us who are over 12 years old have met somebody and gone, something wrong with that one. That doesn't quite sit right with me. And you can't always label it. You can't get, oh, it's because he was wearing a Spurs t-shirt or something, right? It's never something that blatant, right? I don't, believe me, I do not support Spurs. I do not care for football. But, you know, it's not that they shit on my favourite football team. They, I mean, if they kicked my dog, well, yeah, I hate them already, right? But normally you have to get some form of action to qualify this. Now, occasionally you do meet someone and you're just kind of like, not sure this is going, I don't believe this person's ever going to be a buddy of mine. I just can't feel it. It's just not there. Other times you meet someone, it's like you've known them for 20 years. And once again, you can't really put a finger on it. But this person and you just naturally get on. Someone I've met recently falls into the first category of there's something about them. And I can't put my finger on it. But I have concerns. And unfortunately, I'm going to be seeing more of this person. Now, hopefully not too much more of this person, because, well, hopefully not too much more of this person, because they don't make me feel comfortable. Now, they don't have to make me feel comfortable. The world is not out there to make Liz have a better day. Although, would be nice. So, I'm not naive. I don't feel that the world owes me and that, I'm all my, only my feelings matter. Exactly. And frankly, I'm with you on that. And normally, I will say normally, anyone who is an equal dog lover is naturally way higher up the I kind of like you scale than someone who is not. They naturally start, quite a few rungs up. They received a booster pack of, if you like dogs, then, and dogs like you, then, well, you must be all right. I just maybe need to find it a little. But in this particular case, I'm not so sure. And I mean, I did have someone be really nice to me this morning, and she really did do stuff she didn't have to do, and for which I am incredibly grateful. And our HR lady truly is a lovely lady for this. She was very kind to me this morning, because I don't normally struggle with shit. It's just, and if I do, I'm very aware of exactly why I'm struggling with it. And usually it's things like understanding something, and it can be the most simplest thing, but sometimes my brain just goes, no, refusing. It's like the toddler and the applesauce and turning their head away, and kind of, my brain does a bit of that. And so I know that my brain's being awkward, and I can explain that my brain's being awkward, and that I realise, and I can see that it's simple, but my brain's just not having none of it. And to be honest, some stuff currently going on also falls into that category. For what is being done is not difficult. For what has been said is not hard. But my brain's just gone, I see the words. I do not accept these words as words. They are somebody else's words, and somebody else can keep them. Oh, now what? Right. I'm going to think about that all weekend now. Joy. So yes, we have a lot on our minds, some of us. And I got contacted by someone I do work for, as part of the company I was part of, and they asked me, "Oh, can you do this? Can I talk to you about this?" Well, thanks, Nautical. Good luck. Uh, I fully understand the rat issue, as you well know, and fully support all and every action you feel. If you want to put Semtex up there and just blow it apart, I'm with you, right? It's just, if that's what it takes, it's what it takes, man. Enjoy. Have fun. Don't get wetter again. It's the end of the world as we know it. My fingers are so sore. Determined to finish this though. Itchy, 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 itch. I know when I'm frustrated because I itch. And it's a hard one to explain. Take care, Naughty Cat. I hope you got it after all that, though. For those who are watching this later, Naughty Cat and I share a great passion for the dislike for rats. Just no. It's a bit like wasps. Just no. Don't need them in the world. Can we not? And unfortunately, Nautical believes that there are some in part of his roofing. And, well, it gives him the willies, and it will give me the willies too. And I've got a co-worker who also gets rats in his loft. And I have great sympathy for those with rats in their lofts that do not want them. If you have rat pets, you strange people, you, that's fine. At least you wanted them. But yeah. Just poor Naughty Cat. So we have great sympathy for Naughty Cat with his potential rat issue. We really do. So, how are the lurkers out there? I'm sure there are a couple of lurkers out there. Do any of the lurkers have questions? Or are you just happy lurking? There's nothing wrong with a good lurk. Is it not from Good Omens? If there was an album cover, Born to Lurk, these two would be on the front of it. Come on. Dog. He does this so much. I'm sitting on a 3-seater couch. I am in the right-hand seat of the couch. Jesus, you're making a man of this dog. So there is 2 empty seats to the left of me. So where does the dog need to enter the couch? Through the non-existent gap between me and the arm of the chair. Because apparently this is the only way to get up to the other side of me, which he now is, and he's going to go and lie in the left-hand seat at this rate. I am. I don't know how long I've been muted. I don't remember muting it either. But then I don't remember a lot of things. So, I don't know how long I've been muted, so I've been muttering to myself for a bit, clearly. When the hell did that happen? I assume Amy must have headbutted it. So, I don't... I mean, I wasn't muted when you left, was I? Or was I? No, because you spoke back to me, so... I don't know when I'm... I assume Amy headbutted it, blaming the dog. I haven't done anything that needed muting since, so... And it was done by the microphone, not by my actual Steam Deck. So, from that point of view, I'm gonna go, it was the dog. Blaming the dog. See, I've made the same mistake about 6 times so far, but I've got over that bit now, so let me fix it. Maybe what I should do is make a little kind of thing in the corner that tells me when I'm on mute. But the problem is it only knows if I'm on mute if OBS is muted, not if I hit mute on the microphone. So it wouldn't have helped really, would it? It's just a stupid idea. Seems to be the story of my life right now. That's good. That's good. We like cheaper stuff. We like getting either more for the money or free shit or... Yeah, well done. We all can appreciate some good free stuff. So what's your plan then, Naughty Celt? Do you just put concrete dust down, or you're going to mix it with some sand and some water and, you know, cement the little buggers in? I mean... I'm not a cement expert, but as I understand it, you're supposed to mix cement with sand, so... You can't just add water to it and make stuff. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe my parents were just weird. But everyone I saw doing concrete, which was pretty much just my dad, to be honest, or my dad's friend, they were adding sand to it, so... Don't know why, but you made me think of the fact that every time my central heating's died, it always dies at one of 2 times of year. It either won't kick in and it's cold, or it won't stop and it's like 40 degrees outside. I've had both more than once. But it does seem really ironic that, you know, the one time your heating doesn't shut off and it's trying to make it like the bowels of hell in your house is during the summer when you didn't need heating in the slightest. Fair enough, that sounds like a plan. I can understand that. I understands that. Yeah. Well, the problem is if you don't and you hear them again, you'll feel like you're stupid because you didn't do it while you were in the mood, right? And one of the things that I'd be really tempted to do is, you know how like you can get tar that doesn't set? I'd almost want some level of kind of paint like that, where the paint that never sets, so that when they walk through it, you can see where they've been because they leave little footprints everywhere, so you can trace things. Or mix stuff with mix the dust with high pigment colour stuff, so once again you can kind of trace where the little shits have been. Because well, I'm that kind of girl, so. I understand very much the need and the thoroughness required. You know, it's almost like, you know, I'd probably turn my entire attic into a block of cement if that's what it took, you know. No, but I was thinking more, you know, some form of, you know, red paint powder or something, you know, that you can mix in so you can see where they've been or something, just so you can kind of track where the little shits. Because sometimes, I mean, obviously, for example, as my co-worker found, you know, like you, he'd block off route A for them to use B, C through D, E, and F, right? And so by having the trace of and wondering, you know, how they're getting in, well, you don't need to wonder how they get in now, because you'll have the little, you know, if you've coated coated all the potential edges kind of thing with stuff, you'll have a line as to either where they went or came from. And, you know, it's it's, you know, it's just one of those kind of, it's almost whatever you do, it's never going to be enough kind of feelings. But the more you do, the greater the chance of nailing it for a bit at least. Because certainly he's had that problem. He's got rid of all his rats, and you know, life's returned to normal for a bit, and then the rats come back, and you're like, and he's up there. He's spent thousands. I swear, it has to be thousands trying to get rid of the rats in his loft. He's put down chicken wire. He's had traps. He's had people in. He's had those kind of like smoke bomb things that are supposed to, you know, none of it seems to have got rid of his rat problem. Mainly because it comes through from next door. And so he does all of his bit to stop the rats, and she doesn't. And so, yes, you know, he may have kind of rat-proofed it, but they then get in through another part of her house, and then all it takes is the tiniest gap between her house and his, and now he's got rats again. Yeah. I was just thinking of a slightly cheaper method of doing that, because obviously paint powder is generally cheap. Glow in the dark shit, maybe not quite so much. Although, do you remember something on YouTube, bear with, where they basically made glow in the dark liquid from something? Fair enough. There was something on YouTube where I saw that they showed how to make a liquid that glowed in the dark under UV light, sort of thing, right? And I was, you know, logic would say, does that work when dried down to a powder? Because if the powder then works, well, it might be cheaper to make the liquid and dry it out than it is to buy it, if you know what I mean. I am no expert at these things, you know. Okay. There we go. We've finished triangle number 9. Let's stick you so that you do not run free and turn into chaos. Hang on, I need to go on mute to watch video. Okay, the video was not quite what I expected it to be. I thought it was someone being serious about something, and it turns out it's more of a joke, and I'm quite glad of that because it was actually quite funny. I needed that. So let me pull out some pins, because we love pulling out pins. And I am somewhat hampered by the fact that I have no nails to pull out with my proper hand. So now I'm stuck with using the shit hand in life. Okay. I understand. Can't pick these fucking pins up. I hate these pins. I can see another fight coming. This is actually terribly painful. But we need to do it because we like seeing it without the pins. All these pins. Well, it is if it's something you already possess and you can spare it for this requirement, right? It may not be the perfect thing, and we're all willing to accept that it may not be the absolutely perfect, ideal, you know, God-given, you know, approved manner. But if it works and you have it, it's on a winner because, well, you already have it. So yes. As you say, you need to find something that shows up under UV lamp. And I'm sure there are quite a few chemicals that do. Some of which you may already have, you know, around the home. So, as you say, all it takes is finding the right one. Now, obviously, the more it reacts, the better it is. But, you know, life is life. And if it's one you've already got and don't need to spend money on, but it's a bit dimmer, that's fine. It's plenty dark up there, you know. Go up in the evening if necessary, you know. If it's not dark. As a child, one of my mother's most absolute hates of things I did as a child was, and I'm not entirely sure I can explain why I did it, but I had a love of taking the things in the chemical products in her cupboard and mixing them and to see what would happen. Now, I think some of it started originally as, if this shit cleans and this shit cleans, no, but I will tell you that if you add Milton and washing up liquid into... Milton tends to turn water creamy because it's a form of bleach. It's the drinkable bleach from back in the 80s. Please do not understand why we were drinking bleach in the 80s. But it was the drinkable bleach from the 80s. And if you put it in water, it kind of went a milky colour. It was, you know, it was kind of cloudy and all the rest of it. But if you put a few drops of washing up liquid in it, it cleared it all up. I just had this habit of, I think it stemmed, as I say, I think it stemmed from the, if product A is a cleaner and product B is a cleaner, are they more cleany if I mix them together, or are they less cleaning? Do they react to each other? Now, some of these liquids that are very liquid, you put them with another liquid and they turn solid, which I found quite interesting. So I used to do this quite a lot, and I used to get through quite a lot of some stuff because I really enjoyed, watching it go solid or whatever, and turning into more like kind of putty for windows. Well, you see, as a child at the age I was doing it, I didn't really have an understanding of that, but I did have an understanding that this chemical, when mixed with these things, does reaction A, and this other chemical, when mixed with the same chemicals, has a similar reaction. So either has commonalities or similar traits too. I was not that far behind you. I just didn't have a name for it, and I did like the way some of them changed colour. That was a great fascination, the changing of the colours. I really enjoyed that. I enjoyed those kind of things. Do you know what? I don't think I made many mistakes. She says, peering very intently at the area of work. Going to work my way down here a little bit more. You know what? I might actually have twisted all the things I needed to twist. Now there's one. This one. Missed that one. It's better as a mistake in it. I feel like I made it now. Let's see. It's 5 o'clock. There is a bit of me that wants to do more, but there's also a bit of me that kind of feels I really need to sort some of this crap out that's going on behind the scenes. Let's take a picture of it and, waste a bit more time and see what people have written back. Took some pins out I probably should have left, but I didn't do that today. She says desperately trying to find holes to put them in. Because we were keeping these ones so that they don't go wonky when I tie the end. So you need to go back in there. And I know these are a bit far away from the coal face and shouldn't really matter, but being pedantic and accurate is not a trait that is a bad thing when it comes to things like this. Because if you don't do it, you'll only hate yourself later. So, that's true, So you might as well get it right, if you can. Which is why we try and go back and fix our mistakes if we make them, because then we can make them not mistakes. There we go. So that holds all of that section for when we get to the other side, so that it can't squish it. Now, we don't really need to leave 3 rows of pins to turn the corner, but I think I will. I will leave them so that they're protected and they don't get pulled out of wonk, and so they get to stay looking fabulous, because clearly we did pretty well today. I mean, I know I screwed up a couple of bits and there's a bit of a loose thread there. It's a little bit annoying, but nothing too disastrous. Everything else looks kind of reasonable. As I say, pretty much bar that one, I think I actually remembered to twist all of the things that I needed to twist. Which is pretty much so far a miracle. Because before, we had quite a few more than that, and then we discover something else. Now obviously we've had to fix a few things along the way, but that was also not unexpected, as well there. You know what? I'm kind of proud of that. The one thing that I am struggling a little to understand is how a lot of people's rose grounds don't look like squares, they look like actual circles. Mine are definitely squares. Now obviously can't change them because they all currently look like squares, so they need to stay looking like squares. But I would love to know why some of mine, so for example here, these have a much more rounded corner, and so do some, but some have a more squared corner. I quite like the little squares, to be honest, but some of them are very much more circular than others. Mine are not circular, mine are more square. Right. Assuming I am... Right, tomorrow is going to be a difficult day for this. Because tomorrow evening, around 6 o'clock-ish I think, so in about 45 minutes time, I am going to be playing, ready, willing or not, a game who's doing a stress test called Monsters and Memories. And Monsters and Memories is a old style MMORPG. It is not for the faint-hearted. It is not a hand-holdy kind of game. And there are quite a few frustrations, but hey, it's not finished yet. And following some feedback that many of us gave them, that because you start in one of 2 spots at the moment, and the spots are nowhere near the place you need to go as a newbie. But there also wasn't a lot of hints as to where the right spot was. And this does lead to a lot of frustration, because it's like if you pick up any game, if the first thing that happens is you hit start and the next thing, and almost before you finish blinking it says game over, you're kind of hating on the game. And so by not being able to find the thing and not having any clues, it doesn't have a map. And that's fine, it doesn't need a map. But what it does do is, if you're not going to have a map, you kind of need alternative ways of finding it. Now, they are putting in many aspects so that you can ask the local guards, NPCs, where is insert something. But of course you need to use the right wording. And as a newbie, there is a much greater chance that you will not use the exact wording that those NPCs are looking for. And so it can be quite frustrating. And obviously, tomorrow is not really a play test, it is a stress test. So tomorrow we will be trying to overload things, and so chances are it will look really terrible, at least to start with. If it doesn't, it'll be a pleasant surprise, and I'm sure it'll be just as much for them as us. But we've had times where literally there was like 25 minutes lag, okay? But those were during stress tests. They then worked them out and we all got to have a bit of a play. So I'm kind of expecting a similar scenario tomorrow. So it might be a bit terrible at the first while they do some tests and see how many people it can handle before it dies. But then chances are they will either open up some more servers, or they'll do something, or they'll fix some of it. And then we'll have a chance, even if only for a little bit, to wander around and actually have a bit of a play, right? And I really enjoy it. One of the main reasons I really enjoy this game over many others is I've been bitten a few times in the past by the, hey, we're making the game of your dreams. And they do videos and they give you the talk. And it sounds spot on to what you're looking for. So, you stump up some money so that they can work on developments. You pledge, X quid, and you've stumped up, usually hundreds, if they get their way, if not more, to back them to make the game. They either don't finish, Pantheon looking at you 12 years later have thrown it in the bin twice, and now have something that looks more like I did it in my week off, right? There is more to it than that. I am not stupid. I recognise some of the work that's gone into it. But considering you've had like 12 years, dude, yes, you threw some of it in the bin because the aesthetic and the graphics were not suitable. And you've done that twice now, but surely the logical side of it, to a large extent, as a programmer, I can tell you that converting from programming language A to B is generally actually quite a quick process, and there are a few occasional quirks, but for the most part, it is a quick process. Therefore, even if you change completely the way you are making it and what you are making it with and all those kind of things, the thought and logic that you had got working is still valid. You just need to write it in the new way of doing it. And so, the fact that this really looks like someone took a handful of templated scripts, bought a bunch of shit off a store, and some of it doesn't, don't get me wrong. But the fact that here we are a year on, because about a year ago, Pantheon woke up and went, hey, you can test the game. And I'm like, blimey, I thought you completely died. I haven't heard from you for like 10 years. And so I did their test, and it was terrible. It was possibly the worst thing I've ever played. Since then, we are now a year on. They've added 3 races. Yeah, they've added 3 races because originally you only could be human. But the cosmetically, you change things like your hair colour and whatever, doesn't actually stick for most of them, so that's a real non-winner. They've changed some of the crafting recipes, a few locations of NPCs. They recently changed the skin of the bank. But it hasn't really changed. I'd like to think it has under the hood, but from playing it as a player, it feels like it's had like a weekend's worth of work done to it since last year, and they're now in early access. Whereas Monsters and Memories have been going for a few years, they have never asked, and in fact they refuse money from people. The lead guy won't even monetize his stream, because then it means that the company has taken money and they owe taxes on it and stuff. So they are purely doing it out of their own pockets. And there's a team of them. There's quite a big team of them in my mind, considering none of them are paid. I think it's like 20 of them. And I have a lot of respect for them from the fact that they are not ripping money out of your hand and running around and having parties with it. I was a close follower of another game where they made so much money through Kickstarter, and they used to do things called telethons. Originally it was once a quarter, and they'd do like a 24-hour stream and do stupid things for not quite for money, but they do stupid things on stream to keep you interested, and then put stuff on sale for their merch store, so that you could buy stuff cheaper than normal. And they were easily making every quarter, I don't know, $100 and something thousand. Now, I know that to a large extent, to the American side of the world, $100,000 plus doesn't go very far when it comes to wages. You need to move out of America, dude, because no one else gets paid anything like that. You know, I know recently there was quite a big uproar because Unity would try to change their licensing system. And as a result of changing their potentially changing the licensing system, lots of people got the hump. Not too surprising, because, you know, some people who would not be asked to pay before were now potentially asked to be paid, and it was potentially going to be quite a bit more money, because previously it was, if you earn above 100k, below 100k, you can have it for free. If it's above 100k, you need to pay, I think it was something like 400 quid a year. If it was above more than 200k, for example, then you needed this license. But that was it. You only had to license each copy of Unity that was in use. Well, they then wanted to do it as per user per install, right? So if you make a game that has 1 million installs, well, it was also going to be, if you make more than 100k and you have, say, more than 1 million installs, you now need, let's say 500,000 installs, you now need to pay, 5 cents for every install, unless it's over 1 million installs, in which case I know it's a cent. So you had these like tax bands almost of payment for Unity, and obviously lots of people were up in arms because many of them do free games that then have microtransactions, and they were pissy because they don't make enough money. They only make enough money to kind of do the game through the microtransactions. If they are effectively taxed on it by Unity, then they reckoned they would sink, right? But there was a bit of you going, you have to have had 100k plus 100 installs to hit that target, and you're saying you can't pay, I don't know, 5k out of it. Really? Surely you make your strategies so you can. And I have some sympathy, because I didn't want to pay either, but then I don't get any money from mine, so it's a moot point for me. But it is, one of the games that I followed, and well, where I was going with that is a number of the devs there kind of pointed out, if you're earning less than 200 grand a year as a game dev, you're being had. No, if you earn 200k a year, you're in America and you're fleecing it, my friend, because it's just not. And I mean, to be honest, here in the UK, if you earn 100 grand, most people would argue you do not need to be earning that kind of money. I mean, don't get me wrong, we can all earn that, if we could all earn that kind of money, we would all be driving around in kind of Lamborghinis and all the rest of it, but you don't need that kind of money. And so we, this particular game wore me down a lot, because you wanted to support them, and then they took their quarterly telethons to monthly, and the first month they did it, they didn't raise as much as they would normally. Well, think about it. Many people saved over the quarter to buy stuff at the telethon. Well, if then when you ran the telethon and it was a month later from the last quarter, well, they probably haven't saved up a lot yet. And they literally ran almost 2 telethons in a week, because it was and it almost came over, if we didn't make enough money, we need to do it again. And at that point, there was a definite shift in the feeling in the camps, kind of thing. And so from that perspective, we had, I had started to lose a bit of interest, because the game was no longer the game that drew me in. There were things being done inside the game that weren't wrong, but weren't so much my cup of tea. And so the game was pulling further away from the things that had drawn me into it, towards things that I'm not really up for that. So I kind of dipped out. But I'd spent quite a bit of money in there. And then the game got sold. And the guy running it now is a really nice guy, don't get me wrong. I have a lot of respect for the guy. But it's still tainted. It's like everything. Once the bubble bursts a bit, it's really hard to rebuild one. And I just found myself going, this game is no longer aimed at people like me. That's fine. Doesn't have to be. It's your game. You can aim it at whoever you want. But it means I likely won't be part of it. And so I kind of backed out. And Pantheon really has done the same for me in that the initial game that I pledged towards was a good looking game. They'd done a lot of work. There were a number of zones. They had playtests almost on a week. Not playtests, play videos, and where the devs would play and they'd invite a couple of the really high payers in. And they got to go in and they got to do this and they got to fight these mobs and they had an awful lot. 12 months ago when I first logged into it, it was kind of, what happened? It really struck me like almost an intern. I thought I'd have a go at making a game. It was horrific. And, well, it doesn't feel a lot different today to me. And I'm sure there are some absolute lovers of it, and you are welcome to be loving it. You truly are, my friends. But it's not a me game anymore. And yet, they kept trying to encourage us all to give them more money. And it's like, dude, you had my money, you blew it away twice, so no more money for you. So the fact that Monsters and Memories do not want money, will not take your money, is really a breath of fresh air, especially in the whole world of, hey, I'm Diablo, you can spend like £80 more to get in the game 3 days before everybody else. Really? Yeah. There is so much money grabbing, and I'm not saying the effort isn't in there. I'm not saying that the game is not thousands of hours of work. I'm not saying that the game is poor. It is not a me game, and I do not therefore wish to spend my money on it. So I will be doing that tomorrow evening, so I may not do some lace tomorrow, because I'm going to be doing that kind of till midnight, I guess, roundabout. Well, I think they said till 10, but it usually overruns. So if it overruns, I will want to be in on it. So that's going to be quite taxing for me, because I haven't done gameplay streaming for a really long time. If you'd like to come and see me and talk to me and see about the game, I will happily talk to you about it, because I think it's a good game, simply because of the attitudes of the people making it. They are not budging on some of the, oh, but we want to dumb it down. No, they're not budging on that. So I have hope that it will. I don't think it will be perfect for me, but I do think it could be one of the better ones for me. And I'm really keen to see how it grows. So I do watch them. I will watch their stream after this, in fact. And so from that point, I will be around probably from about this time tomorrow. But I will not be streaming Lace this time tomorrow. I will be streaming a game, and you are very welcome to join me. Normal service probably will resume on Sunday, depend how second-hand I feel. But it will probably resume on Sunday. If not, I will try and put a message up to let you know that I'm needing sleep, because I know if the servers stay open until 6 o'clock in the morning, I'm definitely going to be very second-hand. So take care, my friends. We have completed triangle number 9. Hallelujah. We will start triangle number 10 as soon as I am able, and I will let you know. Keep an eye out. Have fun. Bye-bye.